Yes, welcome into Sports Bit Betting Insight today, weekend preview edition. Big game breakdown, NFL, our first game in London. Colts and the Jags. We got the Broncos and the Buccaneers, the Seahawks and the Jets, and the play of the day coming up. Last night in the NFL, a Thursday night snoozer as the Bengals get by the Dolphins. Everything we touched on SportsBit with the preview. The Bengals' issues continued in the red zone. And other than that, you take out that still 74-yard touchdown pass, Teddy. The Dolphins had 150 yards of offense.
Oh, they did nothing. I mean, 9 meaningful drives after that big play TD to open the game. 7 punts, 1 fumble, 1 interception, 0 points, 0 trips to the red zone. I mean, the offensive line really got dominated. There was no run game whatsoever, and Ryan Tannehill wasn't very good. An interesting game because all the game day money and the wise guy game day money came from Miami and came for the over. The wise guys, the syndicates, got them both wrong. But for Cincinnati, it's the same story. We talked about it on SportsBit yesterday. The Bengals can't score touchdowns in the red zone. They keep settling for field goals. They kept the Dolphins in the game a long, long time in a game that really Miami should have been blown off the field.
Yes, no sense of urgency either. They're down 15 points in the fourth quarter. About 5-6 minutes left. They're just walking around. No sense of urgency. I couldn't believe that. Dolphins fall to 1-3. They should be 0-4. Remember, as we talked about.
But that being said, I mean, Marvin Lewis, they didn't execute perfectly. Marvin Lewis had his team ready. Adam Gase, like so many first-time head coaches for the Thursday night road game, did not have his team ready, plain and simple.
Good call by you. College football. Houston, they win by 28. They took Greg Ward out early.
Yeah, both favorites closed 27.5 last night. You know, the one totaled at 49 flew over. The one totaled at 79 stayed under. But, I mean, Houston was pretty dominant. They led 42-7 after 2 drives in the third quarter. Then Ward went to the bench, and they didn't score again. They punted their last 5 drives. Those Tom Herman to LSU rumors, no issue whatsoever for Houston, although they did give up the last touchdown of the game to have it close 28. That was not a good result for the house with that line bouncing 27.5, 28 all week. Wherever you bet it, you should have either won your bet or pushed, and that is never good news for the bookmakers.
Mahomes got hurt for Texas Tech. They still move the ball. I mean, when is Kansas going to have a decent team at this? What a fiasco.
Well, look, Texas Tech had 2 different quarterbacks in one game throw for 4 touchdown passes and 275-plus yards. All right, that's a little bit embarrassing. Well, and I mean, Texas Tech was still throwing in the fourth quarter, which is what they do, in order to cover the number. Still didn't throw enough to get it up and over the total because Kansas couldn't score even against the Texas Tech defense. The offense just couldn't do a whole lot. Yes, how long is it going to take for Kansas to be competitive? Look, Charlie Weiss left behind a pretty big mess. Kansas, not a football hotbed. Kansas, not a place where they have a ton of top-level recruits. Kansas, not a place with a big football history, with a, long and storied elite football history. This is Nebraska. I will take the over, whatever year you want to give me, of Kansas being competitive again. They are, by far, and have been, by far, the worst team in that conference.
From bad to worse for the Browns, a sad story. Josh Gordon back to rehab. More issues. He can't get things straightened out in his life with a substance abuse problem. And it's in 2013, remember, this guy had 1,600 yards in 14 games.
I think this may be a good thing, not a bad thing. If Josh Gordon said that he wasn't, hey, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the spotlight. I'm still having issues. Go inpatient. Get help, come back when you can be productive. Cleveland's going to go, 2-14 this year, whatever they're going to go. If they can have Josh Gordon back and mentally right for 2017, it'll be a positive thing. Because I'll tell you what, I like Hugh Jackson a lot. And the Browns are so young. They're so devalued. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for that team. And yet, we've seen them fight like the Dickens each of the last 2 weeks.
Yep, and the Major League Baseball now, a huge game that was postponed in Detroit. They were finishing up that 4-game series with the Indians and the Tigers, and they're going to have to play the game on Monday now. Here's Jason Stark. He tweets, Tigers-Indians rained out, could create a huge mess. If Detroit's within half a game of the wild card, makeup date Monday, tiebreaker Tuesday, wild card game Wednesday, all question marks definitely in play now, Teddy. And remember, the Indians are still fighting it out for home field and seeding as well.
Sure, bad day for a rainout in Detroit. Let's just put it that way. And there's a potential for mess because remember, if you have to do a makeup game, that can only be Monday. I mean, what Stark was saying. So if the makeup game results in a tiebreaker game, then that's Tuesday, and the wild card game Wednesday. It's going to be an intense week for whoever's there if that comes to fruition. But the bottom line is more uncertainty for baseball. It always seems to happen this time of the year with some random rainout messing everything up for the playoff picture.
And why it's so important is because yesterday the Blue Jays got beat again. They were shut out. Ubaldo, come on, a 35-cent move on Stroman and the Jays. They get shut out. The Orioles take 2 out of 3. The Blue Jays bullpen blew 2 games Monday and Wednesday. So now the Orioles are tied with the Blue Jays. And guess what? Detroit goes to Atlanta, and the Blue Jays have to go to Fenway.
Yeah, I mean, and they're going to have to go to Fenway, and you think, oh, well, Boston's already clinched. They're not going to play. It's David Ortiz's last series at home. They may go hard in some games that appear meaningless. Here's a tweet from Ian Brown talking about it. Ortiz most likely limited to 2 at-bats tonight, but Farrell expects he will take every at-bat for the Fenway fans this weekend. So from all indications, Boston's not going to take it easy, and Toronto just made it much harder on themselves. And you can see that. You can see them clinching. You can see them clinching, buddy. All those Blue Jays fans, all those Blue Jays supporters. It seems to happen around this time of year in every recent season. Toronto finding ways to fall apart.
And we finished the first segment with this, an embarrassment last night in St. Louis. In case you missed it, there's 4 games left in the season. This cannot happen. It's tied in the bottom of the 9th after the Cardinals blew it. Molina hits a double down the left field line. Carpenter scores to win the game, but it should have been a ground rule double. The umps get the hell out of there before the Reds can challenge it. They left the field and they said, sorry, too late, you didn't challenge in time. Didn't challenge in time? You walked right off the field and didn't give them time? How can that be allowed to happen? What kind of home cooking is that with Ford? The Mets must have been going crazy watching that game.
The official rule, according to crew chief Bill Miller, is that teams have 10 seconds to appeal on a game-ending play, and that the complaint wasn't made in time. Brian Price, the Reds manager, after the game, quote, "I'm not blaming the umpires, I'm blaming the system." Yeah, I don't blame him for blaming the system. Kind of a raw deal for Cincinnati.
Yeah, sit there with a stop.
I mean, and that was 2 outs, remember, so it wasn't like that run was definitely going to score. And let's not forget that last night, St. Louis leadoff triple in the bottom of the 9th didn't get that run home. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah, life and death just to split a 4-game series at home against the Reds. How about that? That's not a playoff team. All right, up next, we'll start big game breakdown. And our first game in London, Gus Bradley could be gone. The Colts and the Jaguars coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts. Shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
All right, back on SportsBit. Time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Our first game in London, the Colts and the Jaguars. Colts 2.5, 49 the total. Prep edge to Jacksonville? Sure. It's a 4th straight year they're making the trip. They lost their first 2 trips after leaving early. Last year, they left on a Thursday and came back to beat the Bills. They're doing the same thing as last year. Gus Bradley, a quote here that the fans matter. Quote, "You're seeing the fan excitement and the fan loyalty towards us. It's changed over the last couple of years. I know the number of Union Jack fans, and that's grown. It's beginning to feel more like a home game as much as it can over there. Great atmosphere," end quote. Are you buying that quote?
On one level, I am. But, I mean, do the fans really care? Let's put it this way. If you ask anyone in London, you have a choice between either of these 2 Jaguars, which one do you think they're going to take?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll take the car.
It ain't going to be Blake Bortles.
No.
That being said, the fact that the Jaguars go there every single year, and it's 4 straight years now, and the fact that they've established kind of a relationship with the fans. I mean, the Jags are as close to a home team as there is for the NFL in London, and the familiarity with the process of traveling over there, dealing with customs, etc., I think gives them at least something of an edge here. But is it a big edge? Probably not. Is it an edge? Yeah. And, Gus Bradley's trying to recognize that. Actually, Gus Bradley's trying to do anything that he possibly can right now. Because, right now Blake Bortles is coming pretty close to costing Gus Bradley his job.
Yeah, well, we talked about this in our season preview. Was Bortles a good quarterback, or did he put up big numbers in garbage time? Looks like it was the put up big numbers in garbage time, because last week he threw 3 more interceptions against the Ravens, Teddy. This is alarming how bad he's played.
Well, it's not just the interceptions that Bortles has thrown. I mean, he's got 6 now on the season. But the biggest thing is the lack of playmaking. It was a great column from Ryan O'Halloran in the Jacksonville Times talking about it. Last year, I mean, even if he was playing during garbage time, he was playing free. He was playing aggressively. This year, since that Green Bay game, he kind of got spooked at the end of it. He hasn't been the same since. And boy, when you talk about very bad throws, quarterbacks might get away with 1 or 2 in a game. It seems like Bortles has had half a dozen plus each of the last 2 weeks in terms of those "no, you didn't" type of throws. And there's legit. I mean, Gus Bradley's 12-39 as the Jaguars head coach. We've seen the Dolphins fire Joe Philbin last year on the way back from London. I just wonder if Jacksonville doesn't win, whether Bradley gets off the plane as the Jaguars head coach. With a bye on deck, the timing would be right for a Jacksonville coaching change if they can't take advantage of their quote-unquote home field edge in London.
Also, Teddy, before Joe Philbin, the same thing happened to Dennis Allen with the Raiders. He was fired after a bad performance in London. Colts still learning the new offense under Chazinski, the OC. Is Luck getting it? 93 passer rating, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but 9 sacks. 25th in the NFL in sacks percentage, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, Luck has not had a healthy offensive line at any point this season. His receiving core is still banged up, and that continues. A couple of key guys listed as questionable for the upcoming weekend. So, yeah, Andrew Luck's a very, very good quarterback. It's the pieces around him that are problematic. And, of course, when you're learning a new offense at any point in your NFL career, there are always going to be growing pains. But it's worth noticing that the Colts, when their offense clicked, they had a fast service against the Lions and the Chargers at home. They struggled in that game against Denver on grass. And I wonder if the Wembley grass may cause a timing problem for a team that plays a lot better on turf than they do on natural grass.
Yes, and all those injuries to the Colts so far, especially on defense. Game number 2, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Seahawks hit the road to take on the Jets. Seattle 2.5, 40 the total. Russell Wilson gets on his knees and huddles to call plays. Well, so far, the offensive line's been so bad, he's either on his back or he's on his knees at the end of the plays here. Cable says he's fixing this, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, look at the numbers so far for the Seahawks offensively. 3.5 yards per rush. That's near the bottom of the NFL. Russell Wilson's been sacked 7 times. He's been under pressure. It feels like dozens more than that. And yet, Tom Cable, and this is an offensive line coach who we respect tremendously. And, who's given us quotes and real quotes over the years. That's, all right, we listen to what this guy has to say. This is what he had to say about the state of the Seahawks offensive line. Quote, "Well, we made some improvement." You've been hearing me say that each week, and I'm really stuck on that right now. You don't want to get too high and not too low when you have your failures, but grow. We just need to continue to grow, and we're doing that. I thought it was a clean first half, and then in the second half, some inconsistency. I thought our pad level got up and some things like that. Being able to maintain it for the long haul will be the next step for them. So basically what Tom Cable is saying is it's going to be a work in progress. This offensive line is not going to be elite, and Russell Wilson is likely to continue to be under pressure, at least for the time being. And now
he's hurt.
He has to play. Yeah, he's got to play against a really good pass rush with a bum knee, and that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, and he told the media, there's no way I'm not playing. And there's a good quote from Pete Carroll that when we make these decisions with our players and how we support the info, we support the process of the comeback, it's clear I'm doing this just like these guys are my own kids. What would you tell your son? How would you look after them so they're safe for the long haul? And they learn how to understand the challenge and how the process, there's a process in here. And yet you're out looking after them because you care about them and don't want them put them in the wrong situation. So that's how we are guided, end quote. Well, Carroll might be saying one thing, but here's a guy going to the media saying there's no way I'm not playing even though he's banged up. Maybe they'd be better off sitting him for a week. Who knows?
Well, and, Russell Wilson, he's a gamer. You know what I mean? It's not like we see Russell Wilson always missing time every year, or Russell Wilson with nagging injuries. Russell Wilson's been playing. He did it in college. He's done it at the NFL level. I don't blame him for saying, this is my team. I'm going to go. But that is an interesting quote from Carroll saying, not so fast, my friends. Perhaps that's a reason. The market's still not convinced Russell Wilson's going to play. Perhaps that's why this line hasn't moved to 3 just yet.
All right, how about Fitzpatrick? They had 8 turnovers last week, and Fitz threw 6 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, how bad was Ryan Fitzpatrick last week? Really, 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 really bad. He had a QB grade of 17.1 from Pro Football Focus. That is their worst single game QB grade ever.
Come on.
Okay, ever. Oh. So, I mean, there were a couple of interceptions with deflections with unfortunate bounces. There was, the pick six to Johnson hit him straight in the chest. Another one hit Johnson also in the chest and ricocheted to a teammate. He had a handful of others that he was lucky weren't picked. And aside from the 6 picks, Fitz, I mean, he was off all day. He wasn't able to hit his receivers in stride at any point in that ballgame. That allowed KC to notch 4 additional pass deflections. And by the way, Fitzpatrick coming off that game, maybe without Eric Decker, going for an MRI on that dinged up shoulder.
Yes. After the game, Fitzpatrick, I'm just trying to make some plays. What can you do? Give me a break. Don't turn it over. That was hideous. Up next, big game. Can the Broncos keep it going? Simeon on the road again against the Buccaneers in the Sunday night game. The Chiefs and the Steelers. Can Pittsburgh bounce back? That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBet, Weekend Preview Edition continues. LiveOddsSportsBookReview.com. The Broncos on the road to take on the Buccaneers. Denver 3-43 the total. Simeon, great job on the road. First quarterback in NFL history, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers in his first road start. He was awesome, and maybe a big key to this offense is Kubiak. It's his offense, Teddy, and they're adding something every week.
Yeah, and I mean, Kubiak has his playbook installed. This isn't Peyton Manning's playbook. This is Gary Kubiak's playbook. And look, Simeon last week was able to do that against an elite defense on a day where the running game wasn't picking up chunks of yards. So what he did last week truly was impressive. Of course, Simeon is proving week after week that he's handling more and more. Here's what Kubiak says. He says the Broncos are taking only what defenses are giving. Quote, he took advantage of some opportunities. Sometimes you have to go out there and bang it around underneath, depending on how people play you, as long as he gets the ball to the right guy and reads coverage. So far, Trevor Simeon has been able to do that. But, of course, it's the NFL. What you did last week is not always what you're capable of doing this week.
Well, but still the story in Denver continues to be that defense we talked about last week. You got to figure on a defensive touchdown every week. They are so good, but they open up against Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, and Andy Dalton, yet they only allow a 68.5 passer rating, more interceptions and touchdown passes, and 12 sacks. Only the Vikings are better. Pass rush matters, Teddy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the Broncos have been elite. When you talk about Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Andy Dalton, and shutting those 3 guys down to a 68.5 passer rating, clearly they're doing something right. And the pass rush really matters here. Jameis Winston has made mistakes the last 2 weeks for Tampa. He made a bunch against Arizona. He didn't make as many against LA, but the ones that he made really cost the Bucs in that ballgame. And in both of those contests, when the Cardinals and the Rams got in the backfield, they forced Winston into mistakes and really got him out of his comfort zone.
Yep, and a horror show last week for Tampa Bay. They gave up 37 points to the Rams. Amazing but true. They are 3-15 straight up in their last 18 home games. They have to get the running game going. They couldn't do it without Doug Martin.
No, and I mean, you have to wonder, without Martin, does the defense respect any of the other backs that they have? Because it's 2 weeks in a row that Jameis Winston set a career high for pass attempts. 2 weeks ago in Arizona was 52. Last week against LA, a career high 58 pass attempts for famous Jameis. Now, Dirk Cutter's not real pleased about the all-pass Bucs offense over the last 2 weeks. Here's his quote. In the last 2 games, we've thrown too much. We've got to quit getting behind by 2 scores, and we need to run the ball better. As far as Jameis handling volume, heck, I'm sure he'd throw it every time if he could. But for our team to be successful, we can't be throwing in the 50s. We can't be running in the 20s. So one team with an elite defense that wants to establish the run, the other team coming off a bad defensive effort that also wants to establish the run. Yeah, we'll talk about this game in just a few minutes when it comes to play of the day.
We sure, yes. Sunday night, last game, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Chiefs and the Steelers from Pittsburgh. Steelers 5-47 the total. Should we call Andy Reid Andy Road? How about this? 89-57 ATS career on the road. 16-9 ATS on the road as coach of the Chiefs. And 2 of the losses were by half a point.
Yeah, exactly. If you shopped around, you might have gone 18-7 with Reid. And this, again, it's not new to Kansas City. When he was in Philadelphia with Donovan McNabb and all those great Eagles teams, they kept on going to the NFC Championship game and losing. Those squads, consistent winners on the highway. Here in KC, consistent winner on the highway. Why? As teams tend to be pretty clean. They don't beat themselves. Not a lot of turnovers, not a lot of penalties, not a lot of killer mistakes. Good prep. He's a good game planner, but I got some concerns about the offense this year. They scored 1 touchdown over the last 2 weeks. That being said, they split the 2 games, even though they scored 1 touchdown on offense over the last 2 weeks, because they're bailed out by a historically good pass defense. How about this? A 51.5 passer rating against through the first 3 games. That's among the best ever, although a lot of that 51.5 has to do with Ryan Fitzpatrick and what he did against that KC defense last week. Fitzpatrick, the miscues were certainly a part of that.
Guess who's tied with the 49ers for worst yards per play differential in the NFL? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Can you believe it? They get Le'Veon Bell back, but Teddy, how are they going to use him?
Yeah, say that again, okay? Because it's worth it. Or if you don't say it, I'm going to say it. The Steelers are tied with the San Francisco 49ers for the worst yards per play differential in the NFL. That means every snap they've been outgained by 1.2 yards per play this year. Okay, you look at the passing game numbers for Pittsburgh, and I'm telling you, they miss Heath Miller, they miss Martavius Bryant. We haven't seen the likes of Marcus Wheaton able to step up. It's been all Antonio Brown and nobody else. Now they're going to get Le'Veon Bell back, which is good news. Obviously, with D'Angelo Williams, only 2.8 yards per rush over the last 2 games. And this is an offense you would expect to see, closer to 4.5/5 yards per rush from their backs. But we're going to see some 2-back sets with Bell and Williams both in the field together, Paul.
Yes, and here's a quote from Big Ben. We're not going to put him at wide receiver and use D'Angelo running back, but we will, I think, have them both on the field and move them out of the backfield. We're not going to take running back off the front of Bell's name and put wide receiver, but I definitely think he's one of our best receivers, and Bell's just happy to be back. But you wonder, Teddy, during the suspension, he wasn't allowed to practice. Is he going to be rusty, and is he ready for contact?
And look, I mean, Pittsburgh's offense, one week is different from the next in the NFL.
Yeah.
The Steelers' offense stunk last week. It wasn't really very good the week before. They picked apart Washington's weak defense week 1, and since then, it hasn't been an offense that's been clicking. So you have Le'Veon Bell. You say, he comes back, Pittsburgh's going to start rolling. Well, again, the wide receiver is still an issue. The tight end position is still an issue. And just because Bell is on the field, his first came back following his suspension last year. He got 26 touches. That being said, he hasn't been on the practice field. And Pittsburgh hasn't been able to move the football. They also have injuries on their back 7 defensively, loaded with injuries. The linebacking core and the secondary, both problematic for the Steelers right now.
Yes, all right, money time, play of the day. You mentioned it earlier with the tees. Betting number 267, 268, Broncos, Buccaneers, under 43 the total. We love that Denver defense. What's not to like? And we think we get a big effort out of Tampa Bay after they were embarrassed at home against the Rams. Get the running game going, at least try under 43. That's the play of the day. We'll be back Monday to recap everything. A wild weekend. Louisville, Clemson, Oklahoma, TCU, Wisconsin, Michigan, and of course the NFL. We'll talk to you Monday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.